They tell you money is power. They tell you democracy is the ultimate goal. But what if I told you that for the last 50 years, the entire global economy has been held together by a secret handshake made in the desert? Look at the arrest of Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela and we see justice, regime change. But if you follow the money, specifically the petrodollar, you see something much darker. You see a system that punishes anyone who dares to cut the cord. So friends, let's talk about why the US dollar is actually backed by oil. Why the US military is the world's debt collector. And why Venezuela was the latest casualty in a war for currency dominance. To understand Venezuela today, you have to go back to 1971. The US was in trouble. President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. Suddenly, the dollar was just paper. It had no value. The world was panicking. So in 1974, the US made the deal of the century with Saudi Arabia. It was simple. The US promised military protection to the Saudi royal family. The US would sell them weapons and guarantee their throne. In exchange, the Saudis had to do one thing: price all their oil in US dollars. This is the birth of the petrodollar. Think about what this means. Every country needs oil. To buy oil, you now needed US dollars. This created an artificial permanent demand for American currency. Japan, Germany, France, they all had to manufacture cars and electronics, sell them to the US to get dollars, just so that they could buy energy to keep their lights on. The US didn't need to make things anymore. They just needed to print the money that everyone else needed to survive. Now, fast forward to Venezuela. Venezuela isn't just another country. It has the largest proven oil reserves on the planet. In fact, more than the Saudis. For a long time, this was fine. But then Venezuela started getting ideas. Under Chavez and then Maduro, they started talking about selling oil in Chinese yuan. They talked about a cryptocurrency backed by oil. They wanted to break the petrodollar chain. Now, in the eyes of the empire, this is the ultimate crime. You can be a dictator and Washington will look the other way. Yeah, look at some of their allies. But you cannot threaten the currency. If Venezuela successfully started selling oil in yuan or euro, other countries would follow. The demand for the dollar would collapse. The US economy, which runs on debt, friends, would simply implode. So let's look at the arrest of Maduro on January 3rd, 2026. The official story: narco-terrorism, restoring democracy. The real story: inventory management. Look at the timing. Global oil supplies are tightening. The US's strategic petroleum reserve, that is low. And the US needs to secure the Western Hemisphere against China. Maduro had let Chinese and Russian oil companies deep into Venezuela. He was giving Beijing a foothold in America's backyard. So by removing him, the US achieves three things instantly. It secures the asset. Those massive oil reserves are now likely to come back under Western management, Chevron, Exxon, etc. It protects the dollar. The threat of yuan for oil trade in Americas, that is dead. And it sends a warning to any other nation thinking of de-dollarizing. Look what happens. So the reality is cold, folks. Safety is no longer about having money. It's about holding the money in a system you control. The US military doesn't just fight wars for land. It fights wars to keep the oil priced in dollars. It acts as the global protector for the Federal Reserve. Venezuela's tragedy wasn't just socialism or mismanagement. Its tragedy was it was trying to secure all its wealth in the bank that was owned by the US. As the dust settles in Caracas, watch the contracts. Watch who gets to drill, and watch what currency they use. Friends, that will tell you everything you need to know. This is Bharat Leads. Keep your eyes open. The official story is never the whole story. Jai Hind.